Hey, everybody. I'm Wendy Babcock with the BIZ Sister Show. I am your BIZ sister. So it looks like my guests are having a little bit of a hard time coming on tonight. For some reason, this Restream app that I use can be a little bit difficult sometimes. So we're going to give them some time to jump in. And while we are waiting, let me just double check to make sure I don't have messages here. So I apologize. I'm going to try and waiting on host on my phone. That's really strange. So I'm not sure. It's not a so there's a problem tonight with this, and I'm not really sure what it is because neither of my guests are able to get in. So I think what we'll do is maybe I will log out and try and come back in. I don't know what else to do, but I don't know why it's not letting people in. Interesting. So let's see. Let me see what to do here, guys. So it looks like Jennifer's waiting on host on her phone, but it should automatically let her in without that. That's the hard thing. Hey, Michelle. Restream is fun. So I'm not really sure what to do, to be honest, because I'm not used to this. So let me in. I don't know why it's not letting people in. Let me see. This is the whole part of like entrepreneurship. Stuff happens, guys, and I'm going to see what I can do. Let me see. So if I grab the invite guests, Restream, copy. It's already started, so I'm not sure why it's not letting me invite people. So strange. Okay, so let me do this. Let's try this again. Put that. And let's see. I'm going to send it to both Jennifer and Barbara. It says waiting on host on my phone. The problem is it shouldn't have to wait on host for Restream. So I'm not sure. So if you're watching, if you can try again. Oh, somebody's coming in. Hang on. I think that's Barbara.
Yeah, I'm here. I just got to switch my camera.
Oh, no problem. Okay. So that second. Okay.
Sorry about that. That
No,
was like so weird.
Yeah, no, you're not. So Jennifer's also having a hard time coming on tonight. So
Okay.
it's obviously Restream or something with the links. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping she can get in on this link.
Okay.
So let's see.
And I'm going to see if I can remember how to switch my camera because I literally just did it. Oh, settings. Here we go. Here we go. Because otherwise you get this weird side view.
Right. Well, and not just that, but like I've been dealing with like sound, like using different headphones. And so each platform's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So some platforms I can use, my little headset thingies, but it's still a setting inside of there.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping she can come on using the link I just sent since you got in. I'm hoping she'll be able to get in with that link as well.
Yeah, the other one was asking me to pair channels, and then it said something about I tried to ignore that, and it said can't go on once you're live, and I'm like, okay.
Really? Okay. So I'm going to have to troubleshoot a little bit here.
Yeah.
Once we're off this call. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. And then the email I got said to go onto Zoom, so I'm like, which one is it?
Oh, okay. So that's definitely something. Hi, Winter. That's definitely something I need to look into because somebody else said they got a Zoom link, which was really odd because they shouldn't be getting it. So that's something to do with our calendar then.
Yeah.
So
Working out the bugs.
Yeah. And that's so tonight during our slam session, the happy hour, we were talking about how I get these ideas and I'm like, I'm just going to run with it. And see, these are the things that fall through the cracks because I do just jump onto things quickly instead of taking my time and launching properly.
So you have to not only tame the squirrels, but you have to slow the squirrels a little bit too.
Yeah. And so just for a little bit of inspiration, I ordered this little guy.
Love it.
Oh, yeah, there's Jennifer. There we go. So now I have a little squirrel to look at. So when I get a little bit distracted, I can be like, okay, what squirrel am I focusing on today? So now I have my little squirrel for my desk.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm so glad Jennifer was able to join us. Hi, welcome. Oh, I can't hear you though. So I don't. Now we can. Yes.
Welcome. Thank you, ladies, for your patience with me getting on tonight. Technology's
It,
great.
yeah. No. And it wasn't you. I think it's on our side with the restream links and the calendar reminder. I think has Zoom in there instead of instead of the restream. So yeah, all kinds of it happens. And this is the thing is if those who know me know I'm all about just being real. This is entrepreneurship. No matter how well you think you plan stuff, shit's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen. So we just kind of roll with it. So, so
Yeah,
what we'll
well,
do
I'm
is
so
I'll
glad
just
I
have,
could make it in.
yeah, you and me both. You and me both. And like I said, this way people understand like everything does not have to be perfect in life. You know, this kind of
Yeah.
stuff. That's why I like being live. You know, because normally people would be like, "Oh, I got to edit all that out." No, this is real life. This is how this works.
Y-
So,
Yep.
so what I'm gonna do is I'll have you both introduce yourself. I'll have Barbara go first. Just tell a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay. Oh, I can go ahead now. Are we
Yeah,
live? Oh, okay,
we are
great.
live. Yeah, the whole time we've been live.
Oh, okay. Barbara Fausett from Money Masters, and I am a bookkeeper and a money coach. So, and I live here in Wisconsin, and with my husband on our farm, and two daughters and four grandsons. So I have a fabulous life. So, and I'm
Awesome.
excited to be here. So,
Sweet. Well, I'm excited that you're here too. How about you, Jennifer? You want to introduce yourself? Tell a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Jen at Jenn Espinosa-Goswami, if you noticed that, because my last name is entirely too long for you all to digest on a Monday evening. So I'm a I'm
Yes.
a former cheesehead. I moved to Minneapolis though, which is where I currently live, and I help women leaders show up confidently, both on camera and through speaking in their business.
Awesome. I love it. So let's just dive right in because we're this month we're talking about the speaking industry. So this week, Jen and I will be the panelists, and Barbara is a guest. So she wants to learn more about the speaking industry, and so she'll pop in with some questions that she has. So feel free to just jump in, Barbara, whenever you have a question.
okay.
Um, so Jen, I'm curious. So tell me a little bit about your background with speaking.
Oh, sure. Well, I started off in Toastmasters, which many speakers do.
Yep.
Toastmasters is the international public speaking organization. And I joined them when I was working a corporate job. So I used to work in corporate financial services for about 16 years. And it was one of those things that was part of my annual review. And they're like, you need to do something to expand your horizons. I'm like, fine, I'll just join Toastmasters. No particular reason. I'm just like, it's local, it's there. I'll just attend a meeting or two. I fell in
Right.
love. I ended up becoming like an officer. I participated in speech contests. It was the biggest blast I had. I wish I could turn that into a full-time job. And eventually I realized you can turn speaking into a full-time job. So that's why I'm like, oh, great. This is fabulous. People get paid to do this awesome thing that I love to do anyway. And rather
Yeah.
than speaking for 5 to 7 minutes, I could speak for 45 to 95 minutes.
Hmm. Yeah, and so, what was your experience like first getting on big stages? Because for me, I kind of fell into the speaking business too. I worked at a hospital for 20 years, and then I just kind of fell into it. I had somebody, my mentor was amazing, Will Bowen, who was on my first episode, and he basically handed me a speaker opportunity in a box. Like he gave me everything I needed to get on stages. And so I never had the opportunity, or I didn't go through Toastmasters, which I know is very valuable asset if you're going to be a speaker to go through a program like that. Where I just had Will Bowen, who had been speaking since 2006 with his with Complaint Free World, and so I got to just kind of pick his brain. So what was it like getting on the big stages for you? Or, the first few stages, I should say, that were like paid, which I consider big stages. If you're paid, it's always a big stage.
That's true. That's true. And it took me quite a while to get to those stages because in
Yeah.
the beginning it was all, flowers and rainbows. I'm like, I'm going to be a professional speaker. I'm going to be on the big stage.
Yep.
And I was side hustling while I was working full time and I had two children. So it took me some time to get there. But one of the biggest disappointments I guess I had with the industry was Toastmasters does not really prepare you for the business of speaking. They prepare you to
Yeah.
be a good speaker. They tell you techniques and body language and all the basic things you need to know how to show up and deliver amazing value. But they don't give you any clue as to how to turn it into a business. And I don't have any business background. No one in my family does. I never decided to become an entrepreneur. It just kind of fell in my lap, similar to you, Wendy, where you just
Right.
were invited to speak and suddenly you're like, I'm a speaker now.
Yeah.
So I really think that it was meant to be, but it took me several years to kind of figure out the tools of the trade and the tricks of the trade, which is why I love helping other people, because I'm like, this is really hard to figure out on your own. And how cool would it be if someone could get support for that first few years as you're figuring it out?
You know, you said something so important because I think people do think, oh, I'm going to be a speaker. This is going to be so much fun. I'm going to hit the stages running. But all that behind the scenes stuff, you're going to spend 95% of your time on that aspect of it. And then getting on the stage is kind of the reward for all the hard work behind the scenes. And so I was fortunate where I did have Will to kind of teach me all of that. Otherwise, I would have been very much in the dark. You know, not just the business as far as like the income and all that, but also just how to get the speaking gigs, how to reach out, who to talk to, what to say, how to set up an email funnel, and all of that stuff, which is, I was kind of lost in the beginning. So it does take quite a while to grasp that. You know, if someone's out there just like getting on stages, like people are contacting them out of the blue, good for you. That's
Yeah,
really
that's
hard to do.
amazing.
Yeah. Until you've really like gotten to that point where you're well known, that's when you can kind of be like, okay, I don't need to hustle as much to get the jobs. People are actually just reaching out, but it's hard to attain that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I work with some people who are like, oh, someone asked me to speak, and then they asked me what my speaker fee was, and I had no idea what to tell them. You know, we all run across that. Like, how do you price what you're worth when you've never done that before or delivered that value before? And so it's a really interesting conversation to have if you've never had to pitch your speaking. And like you said, Wendy, it's not just when you show up on stage. That's the very smallest part of what you do in the business of speaking. It's all the beforehand. It's all the follow-up. It's all the added value afterwards.
Yeah.
And nobody tells you about that. Nobody has anything to say about that.
Yeah. The one tool, obviously, like I said, I felt like I kind of like got a big leg up on it. But one of the tools I found that was great for me, because my speaking fee was going to be a lot different from Will Bowen. So Will Bowen's been on Oprah. He's been in People magazine. Like, people know him. So my fee had to be obviously a different level. So I did a lot of free speaking to begin with to help kind of hone your craft and get the testimonials. A tool I found really good for me was Grant Cardone has an online, it's called the Speaker Lab. And if you go to his website, he has like this little questionnaire where you can kind of plug in. It'll ask you like, how many times have you spoken before? Who are you speaking to? Are you traveling? All these different questions that go into adding up what your fee would be. And then he emails you back like kind of like a ballpark of where you're, you know, where the speaking fee. And it's just a guide, you know, it's just a guide. But I found that really helpful because I was severely underpricing myself.
Yeah, and most people do that, especially if you get your practice through doing the free Rotary clubs, the free chambers of commerce, all the free opportunities. There are many of them, especially now virtually. But how do you transition from the free to the fee, especially even if you know what your number might be for your first big gig that's paid?
Yeah.
But you're like, well, how do I go there if everyone knows that I've done all these other free opportunities? So that's a really difficult place to be in for the new speaker. If you're like, well, yeah, I've done all these other things for free. How do I then approach the conversation of, I get paid to do this now?
Right.
So did you actually start out free as well then, Jen, or Jennifer? Sorry. It says Jen on there, but I think it's Jennifer. Sorry about that.
As long as you don't call me Jenny, we are good.
My daughter's the same way. My daughter's a Jennifer too. Call her Jen or call her Jennifer. Please don't call her Jenny.
Don't call me Jenny. Yeah, we're good. So in the beginning, I did do some free speaking. I did have a business model because I did have a mentor like you, Wendy, but my mentor was a local mentor, and she did a lot of workshop type presentations. So the way you approach workshops is a little bit different from the keynote type presentations. And I don't know if, Wendy, we're going to get into that today, but
that's okay. Yeah.
My ideal for myself was the keynote. And keynotes are generally paid, and they're paid a little bit higher than like a workshop. Workshops are usually the very educational, very content rich, and
time consuming.
All
they're
the
longer.
Things. They're longer, and they're very time intensive, and they're not as likely to be paid depending on what markets you're going into.
Right.
So I struggled with that because in the beginning I was getting a lot of the workshop types of presentations and not the keynote types of presentations. So again, I struggled with myself internally about how do I get the big deal, how the big stage and things like that. And I'm still finding my way there. I've explored a lot of different stages that don't necessarily look like the traditional your name up in lights kind of stages, and they can be just as lucrative if you know
Oh
how to go
yeah.
about doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, so what Will kind of taught me was to kind of have a even when I was doing free. So he still had me invoice people. Even if it was free, he says you figure out what your first amount would be. So say you're going to start out at say, $250 as just something, just grab a number, 250, $500 a start, and then you bill them and show them that you gave them a discount. So it's this way if
Ah.
somebody ever asks, what did she charge you? Then they're not,
Mhm.
oh, she did this for free. Well, we got an invoice. She normally would charge $500, but she did this for whatever reason. Then you can say, well, I'm trying to hone my craft. I need more testimonials. I need this or that. You can tell them why you're giving it to them at a discounted rate. And so that's what I started doing. And then I could gradually up my fee the more comfortable I felt. Because a lot of it is, what are you comfortable charging people? They say
Exactly.
charge your worth. That's great. That's great. But if someone says, what's your fee? And you're like, $12,000, but then you sound like 12,000. Wait a minute. Like, that doesn't sound right. Like no one's going to pay you that. You have to feel confident. So I just would gradually, the more experience I got, I would bump it up. Like, oh, I'm going to try and get like, $1,200 this time. And so Will taught me, when they ask your fee, tell them your fee and you shut up.
The
Because
power of the pause, right?
yeah, the power of the pause, because you can talk yourself out of money in a hurry. And I've done it a few different times where, especially with the virtual world, I started catching myself. Oh, this is my fee, but because it's virtual and this, and I can do it from home. And then I basically talk my fee down without anybody asking me to reduce my fee because it was virtual. And
Oops.
in my head, I'm like, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up.
Fast talkers have a hard time with that, right? Because you're so
Yeah,
used to thinking and moving fast that you're like, oh, I got to be quiet now.
right. But, and so when someone's starting out for free, my advice is always get a number in your head, give them an invoice and discount it so that they know that you would normally charge, and depending on who you're talking to, a lot of people don't know if you've been paid or not. So, even moving from that free, unless it's in, the same, like a chamber from one town to the next, if they're right next door, they might ask or they might refer and say they did it for free. But most people don't really know that, to be honest. And so, you can say, this is my fee. And if they say, well, so and so said you did it for free, you could then pop in. Well, yeah, I was just trying to hone my craft and I've got more experience under my belt now. And I'm getting some great testimonials. And, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you both have specific subjects that you speak on, or you're doing something specific that the client is asking you for? Or do you have kind of, I know you with the complaint-free world, that's a very specific message that you're putting out there.
Right.
And that's, that's kind of, it's already laid out as to what that's going to be. But if you're
Right.
doing something different, do you have multiple speeches that you do, or you're just kind of, I'm going to pause. I'm going to do the pause.
Yeah.
Quit
So,
talking.
so I'll go first. So yeah, complaint free was my main topic. I've branched out from there. And so like when the Kindness Bucket Brigade took off, my group about online bullying, I did some presentations in schools. And so that's on my list of things I can talk about, and just kind of how I've, certain topics that I've grown comfortable with, like networking with Slam networking. I'll talk about that as well. So it's just a matter of me feeling comfortable writing a presentation and giving and feeling confident that, yes, I know enough about this that I could go in and teach somebody, about this thing. So right now I basically have 3 topics and I can branch off of there. I just spoke at the Idea Collective retreat, and the topic he asked me to speak on was dream big. Can you give that? I'm like, yeah. So I wrote a presentation just for that because it was something that is near and dear to my heart, because I am a huge dreamer. Everyone's called me a dreamer my whole life, so I felt confident. So it just kind of depends. What are your
Okay.
feelings on that, Jen?
See, I go a totally different way. I'm a big fan of the signature speech. So, because the idea behind a signature speech, and I teach other
Right.
people this as well, the idea behind that is you have kind of chosen your lane, right? And not that that's
Yeah.
the only thing you ever talk about, but that's the thing that you can then take and repeatedly book to different markets. And then
Right.
from there, I customize my program. So, for example, there's one presentation I do in the health and wellness space called Movement Maximizers. Well, I've done that to corporations. I've done that virtually. So not just how to maximize it in the cube setting, but also in your home office. So I customize depending on what the audience needs after they've seen my program description, because I have it all laid out. I have all my programs listed, and I don't really create off the cuff. So I often talk about health and wellness topics. Now I'm talking about how to speak up. So one of
Mm.
my big programs is Speak Like a Boss. What does that mean? How do you build the business of speaking? Well, it's a little bit different than just being a good public speaker. And a lot of people are like, I'm a public speaker. I'm already speaking. That's true, but it's different when it's a business part of your,
Yeah.
business part of your model. So that's what a couple of the things I'm speaking on. And I work with a lot of corporate companies, so it's very important for them to know, okay, what is your description, what is your title, what are your three main takeaways. So I have that all laid out so
Right.
that it becomes easy for me to apply and to reach out to people, because I'm like, I can pitch it and say, this is what I already have. And then if they come back and they say, oh, can you speak to this or can you speak to that, I create spin-off speaking
Right.
opportunities from that based on some
Yeah.
of the needs there and some of the survey feedback as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And I really think that the way Jen sets it up, I think that's really the ideal way to go. To have your main topic, your keynote, your main presentation, then branch off from there. I feel like I have a different situation because what I speak on is Will Bowen's topic, the complaint-free world, and that's why I've kind of branched off in a little bit different direction for some of the topics I speak on. So for me, if my keynote, my main presentation, which is complaint-free world, was my program, I would then create more things that went along with that. So I think ideally, I would always recommend a speaker go more with how Jen does it, where you have your signature topic and you branch, because then you're known for that thing.
Yeah, makes
I
sense.
think that goes a long way. So, not that there's a right or wrong way to do it, but I think ideally, I think you're going to get probably paid more when you're known for, your signature talk,
And it's
and
easier for you too, because I know as entrepreneurs and business owners, we want to create, create, create. We're always in
yeah,
creation mode. So the temptation to like, oh, I can talk about this, I can talk about anything is
yeah,
wonderful, but it also shortchanges you in terms of how to pitch yourself over and over and over. And pitching is an art too. So if you don't have someone doing your pitching for you, then
yeah,
you get more comfortable doing it when you're used to what it is you're pitching and what you're repeatedly saying. So it just makes it easier for you.
right.
Yeah,
No,
that
I
makes sense from
agree.
my perspective too. I'd rather have something that is kind of boxed. We'll call it boxed. But what you said was, okay, I've got my boxed presentation, but I might adjust it just a tad for the audience or whatever their needs are. And that makes a lot of sense because you're not recreating the process of creating a presentation can be huge.
Yeah.
And especially I would imagine in this industry.
Yes.
So that makes a
Um,
lot of sense.
yeah. So Jen, I popped up a question on here. So it says, so Michelle said, I've presented to hospital leaders. Any tips on how to get booked in healthcare facilities?
Mm. Healthcare is interesting. And I've spoken before to different people, but not within healthcare, because what I discovered when I was applying to different opportunities like conferences and events in healthcare is they very much want you to have a medical background. I don't
Mm.
personally have a medical background. So depending, was it Michelle? Michelle,
Yeah.
depending on what your topic area is and what your expertise is, what they tend to do in healthcare a lot, at least for the big annual conferences and the workshop presenters, is they want you to have case studies. They want you to
Yeah.
have some sort of medical knowledge that's specific to different things. However, there are other groups in healthcare that you could present to. So, for example, the admin professionals who work in hospitals, that could be a huge market for you, depending on what your topic area is, or nurse managers who maybe you don't necessarily need the medical expertise that they're looking looking for, but they might want more of work-life balance or how to prevent burnout, especially today. So those are some different ways that you can enter into that market without having that medical background. For me personally, I spoke a lot about weight loss in the beginning because I have a personal weight loss story. I found that market, healthcare, was not very friendly to personal stories. They wanted the research and the case studies and all those things. And I use those things within my topic, but I was coming out of it more from a personal perspective, and they didn't necessarily need that for their conferences. So just some things to consider, and feel free to ask any follow-up questions in terms of your topic area or what you'd like to talk about.
Yeah, and I agree. It is difficult to get into the healthcare industry with speaking, unless it's a non-healthcare. So for me, with complaint free, it's easier for me to get in to talk to like the workforce aspect of it, because I teach like the environment, like the toxic work environments, how to become complaint free, and how that adds to the environment where people are working together. So it's a communication thing. So I'm not going in teaching like health related things, and that's where people run into problems, because if it's on the health aspect of it, they want the research, they want doctors to come in and speak, or scientists, researchers to come in and speak, and not somebody with an amazing story. They don't want to be inspired. They just want so okay, so let's see. Michelle says, I worked in healthcare as a healthcare quality and patient safety leader for 30 years. I'm not a nurse, so your advice was valuable regarding what they are looking for and not wanting. Yeah, so definitely great advice.
Glad it was helpful, Michelle.
Yeah. Integrative health.
Yay, health coaches.
Love it. I love it. So yeah. It just depends, like you said, it depends on your topic, what you're talking about, and knowing who's in the market for what your subject is.
Yes. And you'll notice if you look at some of the bigger speakers that are out there, many of them might have had a personal story that they started with, but then they transitioned it to something that's more workforce appropriate. So they might have turned into sales or into leadership or soft skills or things like that, team building. So it's not that you can't start with a personal story and then turn that into something else, but be aware what your market is looking for.
Yes.
What I'm hearing on the street right now, with a lot of pandemic related things, are burnout, stress management, sleeping properly, topics like that are huge right now. So there are many people looking for those types of workshops.
Yeah. And I've been hearing that as well. And I've actually had more reach outs in the past, probably 3 months, looking for complaint free, simply because,
Very good.
In the workplace right now, people are burned out and they're complaining, and it's becoming toxic. And so, the bosses want me to come in and teach them how to stop complaining, so, yeah. So
now, is there I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to ask you a question, actually, Barbara. So I was just curious, you're interested in speaking. So are you interested in the financial field? And what are you thinking?
Yeah, for sure. Something in the financial field, and kind of what's interested me is there's a number of organizations that are speaking to women, and even some local here in the Milwaukee area that have speakers and so forth. And so I thought about either both the personal, I can speak on the both personal side and the business side as it relates to finances. And Wendy, my passion is for the startup businesses. And so I just think that getting out in front of those individuals, even those early year business owners, and talking about some of the things that they can do in their business that will propel them to the next level because they have a better understanding, financial understanding. And I talked to a potential client today who's got QuickBooks, but he's not even looking at any reports. So he has no visibility. He's just hoping that at the end of the year he can pay his taxes. So what I want to do is try to impart in them all the things that they can do to get better visibility to their finances and their business. So I think there's a market. In fact, I think Vince talked about health, wealth, and was it communication were the three speaking topics, I want to say. Yeah. So I was thinking about it from that perspective, getting into some of these into these events that are kind of for business owners and talking about the financial side.
Well, and I would even add, to a point that Jen made earlier, is like people who are getting into the speaking industry, maybe if maybe it's a Toastmasters meeting that you go into and say, look, you're building your business as a speaker, you're doing, you want to get on those stages, but there's the back end of this is that financial aspect and the business building part of that.
Yeah.
That they need someone to be like hand in hand with them with, here's how to speak on stages and do all the right things, but here's the other side of it where
Yes.
now you need to work on all the finances. So it's almost like there has to be some kind of a balancing act between those things.
Yeah. And I can see there's a lot of, I assumed this, there's a big difference between speaking. I've done a ton of public speaking. I'm comfortable with it. No problem. But as both of you said, it's a big difference than making that part of your business or even your business. Mine would be a part of it. And so just putting that business model together and understanding how you charge and all those things that you've been talking about, that's huge. You've got to have that figured out. And it sounds like you better have it figured out before you really get started.
Barbara, are you on YouTube at all?
No, not yet. So I'm planning on it, but
yeah, I suspect because you're in finance, and I know there's some compliance things that you need to be aware of when you're talking about financial topics and things like that.
Yes.
Totally
Oh, wow.
understand. I used to work in finance too, but I do suspect because it's a lot of very detail-oriented kind of topics that you might be talking about, I feel like it would translate very well to how-to videos on YouTube, which would give you the benefit of being searchable. So I feel like that would be a really good place for you to do like short little things you didn't know as a new business owner that could end up making you not be in your own business right now. Things like that. Very helpful.
Yeah, great tip. I really appreciate that. And I was going to ask the both of you if there's an organization for speakers. I mean, how do you find these gigs? But I mean, Jen, you've already just given me one a possible path into there. But how do you go out and get these speaking gigs?
Yes. Do I go first, Jen? Go for it.
How do you find them?
Okay, so there. Again, it depends on what market you're looking for. So for finance, I would suspect that associations would be huge for you because there are a lot of different finance associations. And that means you can get in front of a host of different companies in the same room, and they can refer you on to other speaking opportunities at different companies. So I would think the association market would be a big opportunity for you. And associations are actually publicly listed. There's a directory of associations. You can Google it and find it through your local library if you want to. And don't be afraid to go outside the box. It doesn't necessarily have to be finance related, but there are so many interesting associations out there. You can literally find hundreds that would be just so eager for the topics you're offering in terms of, setting up the right foundations in your business from a financial standpoint. And it might even be something weird like craft makers of US or something like that. I'm just coming up with nothing here. But no, they would be so eager to hear from you. And associations do pay. So they do have a budget. And that's a great opportunity because you could speak at the local level, but you could also go regional, and then you can go national, and then you can go international if it is an international venue. So just a good place to start, in my opinion.
Yeah. I 100% agree. Associations are fantastic. That's the majority of my business with Complaint Free. It's associations. And it's a simple Google, and they're, Google search, and you can Google financial associations. You can search them, like you said, regionally in your area. And you could even type in, you can search events, financial events, 2022 association, just those keywords, and things will pop up. There's requests for proposals you can fill out for those. Some people hate filling those out.
I don't like them.
I don't either. And you have to be wary. So we talked about this on the first episode with those requests for proposals, because sometimes when they do those, they don't pay. So my advice is always to scan through it to see if you can see if there's anything about the honorarium in there and if they offer one or not. And then that's up to you. So if someone's starting out, it's good to obviously do free ones, but then I would make sure you're getting a testimonial on the other side of that.
Yeah.
At the event. Don't wait. Don't follow up with an email. Ask for it right there on the spot, because people will forget. They'll blow it off, even if you were the best speaker that they ever saw.
Yeah. I remember you talking about that specifically. I think Vince was it Vince that suggested that? Oh, Will. Okay.
Will Bowen's
Sorry.
the one who's like, you take your phone and you say, all right. And you smile at him like, would you hire her again? And so, and that's how I've gotten probably the best reviews, because when you get off that stage, if you've done a good job, they're excited. Like, people want to come back and talk to you, especially if you have a table. and you can just take your phone out and say, hey, can you give me a quick, tell me what you got out of this, what you liked, and would you, refer someone to hire me?
Yeah.
You can always use the word hire, because that means monetary. That means that you got paid to do that gig.
Yeah.
So there's little key things that, go along with it. And, I've just learned a lot from Will. So
So are
yeah,
there
I would
go
also
ahead.
say, Barbara, just don't hesitate. A lot of health related events are included financial as part of the sphere of holistic health.
Mhm.
So there could be opportunities there as well. Maybe not as many of the paid ones, but they do a lot of women, wine, and wealth kinds of workshops and things. At least they do here in Minneapolis. I'm sure they do in Milwaukee too. So, that might be an opportunity for you to get into different companies. And usually they're hosted in places that are friendly to small business owners, like a co-working space or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
something else that's great to keep in mind too is there's different platforms for speaking as far as income. So, like, complaint free is usually a pay. They pay me to come on the stage and speak. I'm not offering a product. I'm just there to help them and help their team. There's ones where you don't get paid, but you're allowed an offer. So like it could be, polka dot powerhouse. So people where they have like speaking engagements where it's free, but you're allowed to offer something. Maybe you have a
Yes.
program, you have, a lead magnet you can offer and maybe have one-on-ones with clients. And there's also pay to play. So I've only done a very few of these. I don't really care to do the
Hmm.
pay to play, but if I
I
see
don't
a
like them
good,
either.
yeah. So, but if I see it as something that depends on how much it is too. I'm not paying 25 grand to be on someone's stage because some do charge that much. But if
Wow.
it's a low amount and I see it as a benefit for what I have to offer to that, especially with networking, if it's gonna be mostly for entrepreneurs that are service based, I'm like, okay, this is my audience. It might pay for me to pay $97, $100 to speak on their stage. And then that's going to give me an opportunity to give an offer and get leads.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm all about finding opportunities because sometimes one thing leads to another, and then there's a certain amount of giving too. I mean,
Right.
sometimes we want to put ourselves in a position just to be able to help somebody, and hope maybe something comes out of that. Maybe it doesn't, but you've at least
Right.
uh, had the enjoyment of helping someone. So yeah. So, do you have legal considerations outside of the topic itself? Like, for example, in the and Jen, you alluded to it in the financial aspect. There's certain things that you cannot say, that you are certain topics that you don't want to go into. But outside of the topic itself, are there specific legal issues that you guys have to think about as you're doing this?
I wouldn't say there are legal issues, but depending on who you're working with, there are contracts
Yeah.
generally, and you
Mhm.
have to be aware of what they're going to. Are they going to record it? Are they going to give you a copy of the recording? If they do,
Hmm.
do you have to sign a waiver saying that you don't own any of it,
Yeah.
or that if you offer something that or no more. Sometimes I work for clients that say you can't market, you can't have your branding, you can't have any of that. In fact, I did a social media paid promotion and they said, nope, it has to be a blank background. You can't reference your website. You can't do any of those things because they were paying me for the video content. So it made sense. So, just look very carefully over whatever documents people make you sign or acknowledge before you're doing an event because they lay it out. And if you don't
Okay.
have a basic one of your own and you're
Yeah.
approaching someone else, it might be helpful to just chat with someone and just see what a speaker contract, a sample speaker contract might look like. They can be very basic as
Yeah.
long as you're clear of saying, I need this kind of technology to present here. I need a kind of microphone. I need a certain type of requirement there. If you record it, you must get my permission. So again, just understanding if you're the host or you're the one who's coming on site, you might also have some considerations that they need to go through before you say
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah. All
Yeah.
those technical components. So now, the first time you contracted with somebody, did you have an attorney look it over, or you just looked at it? Was just simple enough that you looked at that and said, I'm good with this, or did you actually go to that extra step?
I've never hired an attorney. What about you, Wendy?
No, and I always go in with my own contract. I have never had someone
Ah.
make me sign their contract. I have my own contract. So I know what's already listed and I send that to them. So when we agree on, price or if I'm going to speak for them, I send them the contract and I always ask 50% down. So they have to
Yeah.
pay my retainer in order just to book the date with me.
Yeah. That makes
So
sense too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and with my contract, there's other things too, like, okay, what happens if I'm traveling somewhere and there's bad weather? What if there's something outside of our control? So I have that all in my contract of what happens if,
Yeah.
something outside of their control or my control happens. What do we do? So I kind of have that listed in my contract as well. So the point is to most places want to work with you anyways. They want you to speak, and whether it's, say you're speaking at a hotel and the hotel has to close down for some reason, about rebooking a new date. So there's all those little things in there too. And
Mm.
in my contract, I actually ask for a testimonial. I
Uh-huh.
say at the end of my presentation, if you feel everything went well, I do require a testimonial of either in written or video form at the end.
Smart. Yeah.
And I've only had one person that was like, nope, take that out. Like, okay, that's fine. Like, I get it. And I got a great testimonial anyways, but they didn't want to like commit to it. And
Yeah.
it says right in there, only if you really enjoyed the presentation. It's not like you have to give me a flying, colors and whatever, saying that I did fantastic if you hated it. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to have those safeguards. I prefer to go in with my own contract than sign somebody else's, because then I just am like, okay, I don't want to miss anything. But it is, and now with virtual, you do have to worry about people recording the presentation.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you
Right.
think about it, so I had one where I actually had to turn a job down because they wanted to record it. And as much as you want to give value, they didn't want to pay extra for the recording, but they were going to repurpose that recording
Yes.
Mm.
for more training. And I'm like, well, no, we can't do that, because for one, it's not my platform, it's Will Bowen's. So no, you can't have that and keep that information to keep training people, so yeah, there's all those little things to keep in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I've
Yeah.
actually been a part of virtual events where they have their own platform and they will post the recording for a certain period of time. I knew this ahead
Right.
of time,
Yes.
but for me, that was an opportunity for people to connect with me after the fact, because maybe they
Right.
purchased the ticket, they didn't have a chance to see everyone's workshop, and then for 6 months it's sitting on a platform.
Right.
It was a membership-based platform, so they could access it only if they purchased access to it. So for me, that was a win-win for everyone, because
Yes.
then I could share my freebie and they could continue to get value from it.
Right. I 100% agree. I would do those all day long too, because especially when they have these virtual events, people don't go day of. I mean, that's happening. It's hard to get butts in seats right now for events, especially
Very much.
virtual. Everyone is zoomed out. So,
Right.
yeah.
So what kind of expenses do you normally have in the speaking industry outside of course, the travel itself? And I think I've heard you mention before that you usually charge the fee plus expenses. So what kind of expenses do you see for somebody that's new getting into the speaking industry?
Do you want me to answer that? Or I've got a list.
Go ahead. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Oh,
So,
okay.
okay. So for me, you have to think about your CRM. You can have a free paid CRM, which is just to record all of your contacts. So you want to keep track of everybody you're contacting for
Right.
speaking engagements. And if you want to automate it in any way, you're going to pay probably $50 a month for like a
Mhm.
HubSpot
Yeah.
professional or somewhere, or more, depending on what program you go with. So that's an expense. Website, you need a decent website. And if you can't build it yourself, you have to hire somebody. I went through Wix to begin with when I couldn't afford it. And Wix is very user friendly, very inexpensive to get their banner off the top. It's like $17 a month, I think, to have your own website. And it looks professional, and they walk you through it. It's easy to build. What else did I have to do? Um, I'm trying to think what else. No, my mind just went boop. Those are the main ones for me. It's just like the
Okay.
bookkeeping side of things. How are you going to invoice? There's all these little things that you don't think about. So I
Right.
invoice online. I use Square. Some people, only do mailing, but then there's stamps and stuff too when you're mailing things out. So there's all these little things that will add up over time.
Mhm. Okay.
So
Kind of
yeah,
your tech stack then. You've got a bit of a tech stack.
yeah,
Yeah, I have the same thing in my business. The CRM,
yeah,
there's some other things, but yeah, so okay. So that makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah, I
So
don't include those as part of my speaker's fee or part of my expenses, because I'm using that
Right.
website anyway. It's not
right,
just for my speaking, so I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want to
right.
throw that expense on the client. But if for some reason they're
Oh
bringing
yeah,
me in travel, food, any sort
right,
of driving expenses,
right.
those types of things, and then of course there has to be some other sort of can I go to the VIP night if there's a VIP night, or it depends on what the event is that we're going to. But yeah, I've never had anyone say, no, you can't come to the event, and no, we're not going to give you the food cost or whatever. It's usually been
Right.
fine.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think I misunderstood Barbara too. I don't include those in my speaking fee. Those are just
Right.
expenses on the speaker side of things that I have to do to make my business run.
Yeah, and
That's
that's
all.
what I was thinking was like
Okay.
the business expenses, because anybody getting going new into any business, there's always those upfront costs. So I was
Right.
just curious what that looked like. So makes a lot of sense. So
And I used to
okay,
do my fee all inclusive too. That I've just recently changed it because most of it's virtual these days. So, otherwise I was taught to do it all inclusive. Like, here's my fee. This includes all my travel. But that's kind of hard because some places they have a room block. And so they want to give you that included in your, not included in your fee, but like, that's part of your speaker fee is they want to give you that space to spend the night or whatever. Um, yeah. Yeah. Everyone does it a little bit different. Some people are all inclusive. Some people like to charge on top of and provide receipts for their travel and all that. So, yeah. So, well, we're at 6 o'clock. So,
okay.
yeah. So real quick then, Jennifer, I'd love to know, is there anything you'd like to add, as far as how people can get a hold of you if they maybe want to reach out for have you speak or refer you?
Yeah, so I speak on different topics in the health and wellness field, and you can go to my website, waitlistchronicles.com, to see my speaker sheet. It's all out there, including some testimonials and a partial list of clients. My handle, Jenn with two N's, Spingo, is where you can find me on Instagram or on Linktree. So if you go to Linktree /Jenn Spingo, you can see all the ways to connect with me, including a free template on how to create your signature speech.
Love it. That's
Nice.
awesome. Yeah, definitely. If you're watching this, go out there and check it out. And, I always tell people if they find people like Jen who have valuable like freebies, grab them because we know they end up in an email list, but then there's more value that comes after that. So I always say, grab them and get what you can get. So
Thank you.
Barbara, did you have any other questions or things you want to add? I'd love to have you add in like your website or how people can connect with you as well.
I didn't have any other questions. I had like 10 questions and you guys answered them or I asked them. So we're good there.
Yay.
People can contact me at Money Masters for Life, and I'm on Facebook and my website, and it's the number 4. So it's Money Masters for the number 4 life.com or my Facebook page. So
Sweet.
yeah,
Well, thank you both so much for joining me on the Biz Sister Show. I really appreciate all the input, Jen, and all the questions, Barbara. And I hope you ladies had a good time on the show.
sure did. Yeah. Thank you, Jen. I really appreciate your input. So
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to connect offline if you're interested.
I will absolutely do that. I already wrote it down, so I'll get a hold of you.
Sounds
Perfect.
good. And
My
thank
job.
you, Michelle. Shout out to Michelle for the questions. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. And thank you both. See, I feel like my job here is done. I've got people to connect. That's what I love doing. I love bringing people together. You can connect. And yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks a
So,
lot, Wendy.
yeah. So, everyone, you can catch the show live. Well, it's going to be a replay on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You can look up the Biz Sister Show and give us a like and a share. And please subscribe. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Have
you.
a great rest of your
Have a
night.
good night.